Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. Today my guest is Melva O'Neill. She is the Community Engagement Coordinator for an organization called Safe Futures. We'll meet her and learn all about the organization when we come back, so stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Melva O'Neill. She has a nice title, the Community Engagement Coordinator for Safe Futures. It's your first time on the show, so welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sean.
Now, for those that may recognize the former name of Safe Futures, it was the Women's Center of Southeastern Connecticut. We'll get to why we went through the change first, but maybe sort of a first question would be, what is Safe Futures? What's it all about?
Safe Futures is an agency that works to prevent domestic violence and sexual assault from happening, and also to support those who have been victims of either one of those issues. That's it in a nutshell. We're really, when we talk about the name change, I'll explain a lot of the different programs and why the name change was important.
So I assume that it was changed because just Women's Center of Southeastern Connecticut probably just didn't adequately cover all the additional programs the agency now has, correct?
Right, Sean. So when we look back at the history of the Women's Center of Southeastern Connecticut, we were established as 36 years ago as a call. You know, you could make a call and you could ask questions about entering the workforce. So for women who had never been in the workforce before, or for women who were re-entering the workforce, we could answer questions for them, offer referrals to them. But shortly after that, you know, in our discussions with women, we were finding that there were a lot of people who were calling in about other things, and we became a rape crises hotline as well. So then from there, we learned, as you often do when you start a new agency or you start delving into things, that there were a lot of other things that were going with that. Those women who were living in those situations were actually being assaulted or raped by their boyfriends, their partners, their husbands. And that is a part of domestic violence. And so we started to educate ourselves and all of the programs around that to better meet the needs of those people. And so we kind of left behind the focus on workforce and started really looking into how can we best support these people. And we do that in a lot of different ways. Most people think of our agency as a safe haven for women, and it is a safe haven for women and for many other people. We do have safe houses where someone can go away from their abuser at undisclosed location. But we also have transitional living programs. We have court advocacy programs that a lot of people don't realize. We have primary prevention programs where we work with the kids in the schools. So if you are thinking of the Women's Center as only a safe haven for women and only someone you would go to in those really crisis situations, you were really missing a big part of the picture and all of the other things that we do.
And it sounds like that's the reason you went with the new name, because it was so much more all-encompassing with some of the other things. But my question is, though, on the flip side to that, is it possible that maybe for someone new who needed your services, Women's Center is very self-explanatory. Just seeing Safe Futures, is it possible that someone might not know what that real core purpose was and not realize that that's still available for them?
I think there is a possibility, but there was always that possibility too with the name Women's Center of Southeastern Connecticut. One of the things we do realize is that people who were familiar with the work that we do are still looking for a Women's Center, and so we have been really working diligently on getting the name change out there. Safe Futures of Connecticut.
Coming on this show, getting the word out.
Right,
like
getting the word out. Another thing that we realized, though, is that people did not often associate the work that we did. We do work with all populations, regardless of your race, your gender, your ethnicity, your sexual preference. We work with everyone. And one key part that I think we were really missing is our primary prevention, our programs with youth, our programs with children that we start all the way from preschool all the way through high school. That really builds the foundation for them, helps them to develop those healthy relationship skills, recognize unhealthy behaviors, gives them some tools to resolve conflict in non-aggressive ways. If you are looking for something like that, and you were thinking that we are only a safe haven, you're going to miss that. Also, we feel that Safe Futures supports all of those things. The whole concept of the work that we do, not only to support those who have already been victimized, but to prevent it from happening altogether.
And you know, it sounds like even if you didn't ever change the name, if it was still Women's Center of Southeastern Connecticut, you would still want to emphasize, because it totally makes sense. It's not, you know, helping the victim after the fact. More and more, it's all about preventing in the first place, and you do that by getting down with the kids, younger children, and educating them, right?
Yes, and in order for us to get there, to get to work with the children, educators have to know that we have these kind of programs, parents have to know that we have these kind of programs, and so without promoting that through the Safe Futures name, or being able to promote that when we're out tabling events or doing an awareness event, people would not approach our table if they thought we were just here for domestic violence issues. An educator might not come up to us, but they will come up to us if they have a better understanding that we offer these programs. And so Safe Futures, again, really encompasses all that we do.
So it's actually not hurting that core, it's actually helping you expand the group of individuals to be able to access a lot of other things that they might not have been aware of that you were offering before, just because your original name was much more, you know, defined and specific to a certain...
Right, and people did get confused with that as well. I mean, people would think the Women's Center, oh, it's the OBGYN office, or, you know, I mean, we had a history, and that's why a lot of people would recognize the name. But if someone just came up to the table or passed by a table and it said Women's Center, they may not think it's or they may think that we have many more programs for women than we do, too. So it would happen, it has happened in the opposite way, too, that they thought we could offer them all kinds of assistance for women, regardless of what it was.
But you could probably steer them in the right direction, even if it was a service that you didn't offer per se.
Correct, if they're coming up to us, and that's why, again, the name change is important, because people will be more curious, but not put off by that Women's Center name.
Right.
You know?
I would imagine, you know, a good agency over the course of time, you know, expands and you know, offers more services, and that's a natural progression. A good agency would do that slowly but surely to meet the needs of the people, women and everyone that's involved in domestic violence and anything of the sort. As time goes on, new things are going to come up, new programs are going to be available depending on funding and things of that sort. So it's always an evolving process and an evolving agency, correct?
Correct. It is always an evolving process, and which is why, again, we started as this, you know, call line for women who are entering the workforce, learned about the rape, but then also as we were looking into domestic violence, we found out that, you know, it's not just a safe place that these individuals need. There's so much more that they need to support them. What if they needed to leave their job because they're just not safe at their job? What if they're being stalked at work? How can we help them find employment again? You know, do they have post-traumatic stress disorder? Were they physically abused to the point where they really need a lot of medical attention right now? Being able to give them all of those things and then helping them to rebuild their lives. For instance, we have a transitional living program where a mom and her children can live for up to 2 years while they put their life back together. Through that program, we have employment services. We actually have a career center on site for them so they don't have to go out and get childcare all the time. We have different workshops and life skills training for people so that they can really become self-sustaining. And all of the time that they're there, they're really working on their emotional development as well. They're feeling stronger. You know, just giving themselves the skills and reminding themselves that they have the knowledge and the skills to do this on their own, that they don't need to depend on someone else.
Right, because confidence goes a long way in a person's ability to be able to get back on their feet and get out in the world again.
Absolutely, regardless of who you are.
Right.
And for people living in these kind of situations for a short amount of time or a long period of time, they are really crushed. They don't have that kind of confidence a lot of time, you know, to get out there and do that. So that is a lot of what we do, whether they're doing it through our transitional living program, our safe house, our counseling office. That is a lot of what we do there, help to remind people that they can make these decisions and choices on their own.
When it was the Women's Center of Southeastern Connecticut, it sort of had in its name Southeastern Connecticut. Does Safe Futures sort of serve the same general area, or has that expanded as well?
That is not expanded.
Okay.
We still cover Southeastern Connecticut all the way from Old Lyme, all the way to Voluntown, Basel, Lebanon, Norwich, New London, all of those towns. So that is not expanded. And in the state of Connecticut, as it is in a lot of states, the state coalition has broken it into territories, and that is our territory.
And if someone happens to be watching this show from another part of the state, you can certainly steer them to an agency that's more appropriate for them, closer to them.
We can certainly steer them to an agency. That is a great deal of what we do as well, whether it's another domestic violence agency or another referral that we could give them to access to housing or access to medical assistance or energy assistance or all of those kind of things. If they're living in this kind of situation, we can certainly do that.
Domestic violence in general, and you've been with the agency for a while now, and you've been in the field for a while. Is there progress being made, not just only on its awareness, but people's how they treat another person? Talk about that a little bit. Are there statistics, or can you just, based on what you see coming through your doors, is it good news or is it not so good news? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
You know, that's a really good question. It does get frustrating sometimes when we think back to, for those of people who are aware of like the Tracy Thurman story years ago, and there have been some really positive laws brought into effect. We still see this happening, which is the frustrating part, is that it still happens. And we know the Center for Disease Control did a study in 2009 with high school students. And at that time, they found that a little over 9% had experienced some kind of dating abuse already in high school. We did our own survey in Southeastern Connecticut the same year and found that 12% of our students had already experienced that. Nationally, those rates have now gone up as well. So that's discouraging to know that this is happening with the younger people too.
Yeah. Especially since you're talking to the younger people more now, You're trying to get the word out with them younger, but they're also talking back to you and telling you what's going on in their lives as well.
Right, which is really important, and to build that rapport with them is really important. So while there are good things happening, and we have been able to get in probably more schools to do those kind of programs, I think for me it's a little frustrating that some of the same things that were going on years ago are still going on, and some of, we have laws that change for better. We've had some bullying laws that changed. We've had some sexual assault and domestic violence laws that have changed, but we still have a long way to go.
A person's mindset has to change, their philosophy on life and what they think is appropriate and not appropriate. That needs to change. Is it possible that just because it's more out in the open in the light that you hear about it more, hence it makes it seem like the numbers are higher, but maybe back then, maybe they just weren't talking about it as much? Is that possible?
There is always that possibility.
Yeah.
As with anything, there is that possibility.
We're more open society nowadays, so things are talked about more, even the bad things.
Right. So there is always that chance, yes, that more people are coming forward, which is fantastic. But the bottom line is it's still happening. Some of the more promising things that we are seeing in the agency is, first of all, our ability as an agency to better respond to different situations, our ability to respond both, culturally with diversity.
Does that mean like languages and things
Language, culture, understanding different ethnicities, being open, being able to embrace them.
And where you serve, southeastern Connecticut, there's a very mixed cultures in this area too. So you have to be able to deal with different languages, cultures.
And we are. We get training. We make sure that we are culturally diverse. We also have diverse staff. We also have a diverse set of volunteers that we can rely on if we need to, if we don't have staff to fill that particular slot at that time. But also some of the other things that I'm really excited about is we are reaching more kids. More kids are getting involved. Kids, high schoolers that we have done programs with are now coming to the agency to volunteer. They're going out and they're doing tables. They're getting the word out that, teen dating violence happens, so let's talk about it. The more people we can get involved, the better off we're all going to be. Are
you initially going into the schools to try to reach them in the first place? Are you talking to teachers and principals and setting up programs so that you can speak to them at their place, or do they come to you? How does it work?
Generally, we go to a school. We send out information about our programs, and we try to get into the schools. And it's not a one-time thing.
Right.
We really don't do assemblies.
Right.
Our programs are geared to for repetition.
Right.
And so we're talking about it for weeks at a time with the same group of students, because that's what works.
Going one time with an assembly, they're going to forget about it after a while and just kind of go back to their lives, whatever it was they were doing.
Right. And what kind of impact is it really going to make? Where if we're in this school for 12 weeks, and we really get the kids talking about it, and they're really thinking about their behaviors, and we're not talking at them, we're exploring all of these things with them. We're engaging them in this whole process. And then hopefully we're getting to go back to those kids the next year or a couple years later, and again, rehash that at a deeper level because now they're older, right? So that is really exciting to us. We'd like to see it in more of the schools, though.
Slowly but surely? Slowly
but surely. Another thing that I'm really excited about is the realization for a lot of people now that are more aware is that domestic violence is not a women's issue. It is a cultural issue. It is a social issue that everyone needs to be addressing. And we have an engaging men's group. So a group of men who are taking lead roles in being male role models in our community, who are taking some initiatives and working on developing some programs, other programs in the schools, maybe some parenting programs, fatherhood initiatives. But it's really about them being part of the solution.
Maybe another reason why the Women's Center of Southeastern Connecticut, that name is outdated now because, gender it's not about just women. It's about, like you just said, men being involved, taking the initiative, starting programs and, getting the word out themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's not, which again did limit us greatly. Right. If I was out at an event and we had the Women's Center, a table set up with a banner, men would walk by.
Right.
Unless I was out in front and stopping them. They would walk by because they thought it didn't have anything to do with them. And really it does. It has something to do with everyone.
Well, when you're talking about domestic abuse of women, certainly men need to be educated at 100% as much as what women should do should they become victims. But again, it goes back to the preventative stuff, educating especially young men and children.
Absolutely. Talking about our behaviors. Why do we behave the way that we do? Is there something in our culture that makes us behave that way, or is it something in our family? Abusers, they're all about power and control.
Right.
It's not a normal relationship where you might have a disagreement every once in a while, but it's really about controlling other people. Usually your partner, quite often though the family unit, or anyone living in that household. And what kind of background or what is the mindset of those people that make them believe that it's okay to have that much control or control at all over another individual? And it's that we need to address.
Is it a lot of times what you'll find that it's very going back X amount of generations where that mindset is almost accepted and not and being tolerated? Is it a generational thing in a lot of cases?
I think, yes, it is a generational thing for many families. We know that children who grow up in those kind of environments, boys are 50% more likely to become abusers themselves if there is no intervention, such as one of our programs or counseling or something like that. We also know girls are affected, and we also know that children can have the same kind of physical and emotional detriments that adults do who are living in those kind of situations. So children may have PTSD. They may have socio-emotional disorders. They may be really anxious. So if they're in school and they can't seem to concentrate in class, it might not be that they just don't want to do the work. It might very well be that they're just worrying what's going on at home or what might happen at home tonight.
And it would benefit the teacher to be able to identify that maybe as a potential issue, and not just the student not wanting to participate in class just because they don't feel like it.
Right. And that's important too. Climate in a school is very important. Do these children feel that they can talk about something like this with one of their teachers? Do they feel comfortable going to the social worker and bringing something like this up? That's really important, and that's something that we've been working on more and more in schools. We have our programs so they know that there is someone to talk to. I know myself living in that situation as a child and talking to other people who grew up in homes like that it is such a gift for a child just to have somebody come into the school and be working on relationships, to know that this is not normal and know that there are people who care about helping you.
Do a lot of the staff and or volunteers have some kind of personal experience where it just makes sense for them to be involved in Safe Futures? Does it make even more sense to have them be involved? I know they don't necessarily have to be, but...
I think, I don't know what the exact ratio is, but I think many people in any kind of social service are drawn to helping other people. They like to do humanitarian work, usually because they have some kind of either indirect or direct relationship to it. Volunteers and staff.
What's the first thing that a person, if they feel that they are being abused, or if you know someone, family member or a friend, next door neighbor, whatever, what's the first thing a person should do? Who should they contact and reach out to?
If the person themselves feels like they're being abused, they should really reach out to our agency, reach out to Safe Futures, reach out, call the national hotline. If it's safe for you, get on a website. If you don't know a number, get on a website and look it up. Most of those websites, if they're set up well, they'll have an escape. So if you are on the website and your abuser comes on, you hit that escape button and it is gone. The history, everything is gone.
Why don't you, since you mentioned it, why don't you give out your website and phone number?
So our website is safefuturesctconnecticut.org. And our phone number is 860-701-6000.
What's on the Safe Futures website for people to go and see?
There is a whole host of information, and what we did with the name change is we rebuilt our website. And so there's information about all of our different program areas, contact information, different subcommittees and groups like our Engaging Men's group, events that are coming up and going on, information about our tours. We have, we call them Safe Harbor Tours. It's tours of our agency. And really you get a good understanding of the work that we do and the people that we're working with.
Yeah, the best way is to see it in action.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So you get a really good understanding. So all of that information is on the website. And then, some more technical information like what is domestic violence, what is sexual assault.
Right.
Some about the laws and things like that. And we are building it all the time so that we can really help people better understand.
I know you're also plugged into social media too, so there are links there to your Facebook page and things like that, because a lot of people are on that.
Twitter,
a lot, so
yes. And then different events as we have them coming up. There may be links to connect to different events.
The economy that we're in now, does that affect people's ability, or do you see an influx more so because of the way the economy is now? And furthermore, your ability and your agency's ability to do the work that they do because of the economy the way it is?
So that is a common question, especially the question about whether or not it affects the number of incidences is what you're asking me, right? So the economy doesn't really affect the number of incidences, or from what we've seen thus far, but what it does affect is the lethality of the incidences, the increase in the violence in the incidences. So where someone may have been verbally abusive before, they may become physically abusive. And it's not because, I want to bring clarity to this, it's not about them being angry. It's about them thinking that because they're upset about something, or maybe they're not even upset about something, thinking that it is okay to take any kind of anger or anything else out on another person. When it comes to the economic downturn, we're looking at finances as being a means of control over another person. You know, if you have the checkbook and you tell them when they can go to the grocery store, if you have 2 cars but you always have the keys, those are forms of financial control. And so if you are losing part of that control because you have now lost your income, or your income has started to be depleted, you are now thinking that that is a form of control that you might no longer have over that individual, those individuals, right?
Right.
So that can have an impact on it. As far as our agency's ability to respond, we're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
We're challenged.
Yeah, it's always ways of looking for funding and.
Right.
You know.
It is challenging looking for funding. Most people know that we are looking at the state of Connecticut is looking at huge cuts. And also federally, we're looking at some huge cuts. So what that means to us is we get less and less funding. You know, we have, again, we serve all of southeastern Connecticut with about 43 staff members. Half of them are part-time or per diem. So we're really covering a large area and a lot of work. You know, in our court program alone, last year we served over 4,000 people.
But doing a great job, though, at least from the way you're describing it. We are out of time, unfortunately. So Melva O'Neill, she's the Community Engagement Coordinator for Safe Futures, and it was very nice having you on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
We're going to put the website, phone number up on the screen again. That's our show for today. I'm Sean Murphy. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube site, so go check that out. This is For the Record. We will see you next time. Take care.